So I love the example that I often use of the man who stopped smoking and he carries a cigarette in his breast pocket. And every time he wants a cigarette, he pulls out the cigarette and he looks at it and says, no. And he puts it back in his pocket. That's a good example for us to gain mastery over the material. Once we gain mastery over the material, we gain mastery over the material.
See what you did there. So we're not separate from the material.
You're not separate.
We one with the material.
Yes,
the material is one with us. All right, that's powerful.
Basic idea is that consciousness is what's fundamental. Consciousness is the thing that's real, and everything else is created by information. We live in an information-based reality, and that can be said, in other words, it's a simulation, or in other words, a virtual reality. But a virtual reality, unlike other people's concept of virtual reality, this is one where consciousness is the computer. Consciousness is the bottom substrate of reality in which everything else springs. So that's the basic idea, that we are consciousness.
Welcome to Call for the Truth. I am LaOta of the Sun, and this is Tarvars of the Sun, and we are happy that you have joined us today. We have an interesting discussion today about simulation theory. So, Tarvars, will you bring us into the Call for the Truth?
Well, certainly, and we encourage you all who are joining us to move into the space of calling forth the truth. Shall we call forth the frequency of truth to come forward? Shall we call to see the truth in all that we see? Shall we call to hear the truth in all that we hear? Shall we call to speak the truth, calling forth the courage to speak the truth? Shall we call forth nothing less than the truth to come forward into our experience? All right, so look here. This video is for the people who commented simulation. So this one's for you. I got to cross my legs for this one. You talk about the simulation today. And so, LaOta, I want to start off by reading a definition, because we needed to really identify what do we mean by simulation, because we could see many people have different understandings. So to set us up for this, it reads, being part of the simulation typically refers to the idea that reality as we perceive it may not be the true objective reality, but instead a highly advanced computer-generated simulation. This concept, often called the simulation theory, suggests that our experiences, consciousness, and the physical world could be artificial, much like a simulation in a video game. So there's a lot that could be said.
Go right ahead.
Are we AI? Are we computers? They're using references of human technology that mimics the construct that we're in to try to define what we're in. But what do you understand the simulation to be based off of what they're saying? Because I think some of this can actually be deconstructed.
I can see that the way people are perceiving it at the level of their understanding is correct. What I understand is that everything is a cycle, everything is a reflection of everything else. The constructs in the cosmos present a plan, a divine plan, which materializes as a reality in which we have an opportunity to move through contrasts. But the landscape, so to say, the reality is the landscape and the ecology through which our consciousness and our levels of divinity operate through. So yes, I do see that it could be a metaphor for something else in terms of we are greater, we are larger than the bodies and the experience we're having. So it is our 12th dimensional self is watching us in the landscape of our reality and helping us choose and make decisions as a program of growth and teaching. So it's like, oh, look, he's going to go through that door. That's the door where he gets eaten by the tiger. Like, but next time he won't go through that door because that's so dramatic. He'll go through the other door.
Yeah. that DNA started broadcasting, and he don't know where it's coming from, but he's like, I've been down that road before. You've been down that road before, Neo. You know what that simulation?
So
right?
in that sense, and then it's also macro and micro. So in the micro sense, it is our individual DNA, our individual selves, our ancestors. Our ancestors have neurological issues or high blood pressure or cancer, and then the doctor says, well, you're going to have it too. So that's the simulation being imposed upon the player in the simulation of the game. But then that doesn't have to be the outcome. And so the idea of this is an environment, a landscape as a classroom. And yes, it does exist, but no, the outcome does not have to be what it looks like. It can be changed.
All right, so that's a whole lot. I don't even know where to go back to, because we can go in so many fractal areas. All right, so in essence, let's go back to this. You were saying that consciousness, or our 12th dimensional self, is operating through this landscape, right? And when you said that, there are people, including myself, that subscribe to this idea that life is like a video game, and that 12th dimensional self is the controller, making the choices. Well, actually, all of us may not have that strong connectivity, because hence DNA activation, Christ consciousness, that whole idea. Watch the video, the podcast, once it's released. And so this idea of something that's beyond us but is us, like outside of the construct, there's this definition of simulation where they say humans are living in a computer program governed by some outside entity. And the description, though, it has a very doom and gloom, nihilistic feeling, like there's nothing I can do about this. Everything is just something greater outside. We don't know what it is, but we know we can't touch it, smell it, see it, but it's all around. But what you're saying is, even though there are predetermined sets or trajectories based upon things like ancestry, things that are hereditary, we can change that. It's not set, so lie they tell. They're not telling the truth, essentially. Or a fragment of the truth, or a distortion.
This is a prison planet. We are locked into this experience until we decide to unlock the door. What unlocks the door is we are weaponized through our desire to be free. But freedom has been educated out of us. Sit in the back of the room, stand in the corner. If you stick your head up, who do you think you are? Freedom has been cultivated away from us, so we don't have the urge to be free. We don't feel like jumping out of the water like a dolphin. Yeah. They have the urge to be free. We can see the freedom in them. Yeah. They don't live in the dimension we live in. They live in another world. We can jump out of the prison planet, and we can jump out of what they're calling the simulation, which is the press of anti-life, moving us into a direction where we won't have the thought, I could be free. Ooh, I don't have to do this. I could think a different thought. I don't have to eat the thing. I don't have to sleep with the person. I don't have to, wear the thing. I don't have to walk around in a mask. The mask is such a perfect allusion to it, because the mask that we wore during COVID is the idea of critical mass. A certain number of people on the planet start wearing masks. Next thing you know, everybody's in a mask. Certain amount of people on the planet don't want you to know who they are. Don't look at me. I don't want you to see me. I fix my nose so you don't know who I am. I changed my hair. You can't see me. I've got another wig. And now we're all wearing masks. So it's the same way with clothes with holes in them. The whole world is wearing pants with holes in them and things that are torn, creating the next simulation of nobody having clothes.
Yeah, a post-apocalyptic type experience.
That we are the controllers, not just the players in the simulation. We are the ones who are putting into effect our limitation to imprison us further.
All right, so with that being said, so we are the simulation and the simulation is us. There's no separation from the simulation. Because people think that, and this is why I said that some of these definitions are very limiting, because it creates this, it defines it as though we are separate, from our divinity, or we're separate from the thing that's outside of us. And from our truth that we're not separated from anything that's outside of us. The field, the simulation that we be stimulating in is inherently what's within us, and we get to interface with that, and we have choices, and again, we can change it, but we have to know we can change it.
So so now this is the big boy and big girl moment. Like, yes, the darkness that's in the simulation is us.
Even at the large scales, because sometimes
Even
people
at the
are
larger
like,
scales.
how's that me? How's
Otherwise,
Trump,
we
Elon
couldn't
me?
resonate with it. It wouldn't be a frequency match. We wouldn't be living within it if it wasn't within us.
Message.
So this is the big girl, big boy moment. Like, we have to clean up our experience if we want to clean up our experience. If you want not to be pressed into servitude, to bow at the altar, to, kiss the ring, then you have to choose to be free. And if you choose to be free, there's a whole nother set of dynamics opens up that give you paths to freedom, but may challenge you because you have never done it before, and your parents never did it before, and their parents never did it before.
This is giving like one of the biggest secrets held from humanity, where we don't realize that reality is us and we are one with reality, and we can change it. Even though it's out there, it's put in front of us in such a way, even with the New Age movement and these different religious groups, it's put or sold in such a way as if we're separate, that we don't have no control. It's something outside of us. And again, it creates, I keep going to this word nihilistic, because as our camera lady was saying, people are in an experience where the press of the outside simulation pressing against their limited conditioning continues to make them atrophy, so to say. Not in the place of not knowing that there's an alternative. Oh, I can change my thinking. And then my thinking I can change how I feel. No matter what the simulation looks like, I can change how I feel and then start influencing the simulation.
We have so many examples of people who we consider extraordinary, who have gone against the field. Muhammad Ali said, "I'm the greatest." He said it so much the world believed it. He said it so much that that the constructs that were trying to imprison him and send him to Vietnam didn't. He said it so much that he made millions of dollars against all odds. He said it with no ancestry to back it up. He didn't have Rockefeller backing him up. He didn't have, the Rothschilds backing him up. He came out of the ghettos in St. Louis and said, "I'm the greatest, and I'm going to work at being the greatest." And he worked at being the greatest all day long, every day, year after year after year, until he was the greatest. Whether it was in his mind or in the minds of all the men who saw him, or the minds of those who accepted it, he achieved breaking out of the reality that would have been he would not have gone to that extent from where he came from, with the landscape of the matrix and what the simulation was calling for. So we have all kinds of examples of those who think a different thought. What we don't understand is that we get the big guns, we get the artillery from wanting to be free. Choosing, like, I'm going to be free, and you do it in micro steps. So the first time he hit somebody and was learning boxing, that wasn't when he was the greatest. But after he had had enough fights, after he had practiced enough, after he put enough hours in, he had given himself the value that then the world was forced to accept to whatever varying degrees. And we see the evidence of it, but not only him, but all those who are like him. So the answer is decide, choose the value that you will be to yourself, because everyone else is your other self. So it's not, we're imprisoned by our lack of understanding that we can be weaponized by our will to be free.
So much said there. There's a line that popped up in my mind. There's no separation in the simulation.
There is no separation in the simulation.
But to go back to the example of Muhammad Ali, just looking at some core practical ideas here, where this is somebody who took action and reaffirmed himself through the action, in spite of what was presented or materialized in front of him. He just kept, so it's almost like a horse with blinders on.
Yes.
Like, I don't care what this looked like, I'm going for it. And I can see how that same principle can be applied to pretty much anything in our experience. And that is, it's so wild. Like, as you were speaking, I could see how there are so many constructs that are set up to stop us or negate us from doing such a thing, to deter us from, you know what, I'm not going to pay attention to this. Because everything is like, pay attention to me. You know, trying to take real estate over our mind in the direction of our creative energy. Just like you mentioned about the clothes, where people are, usually people who dress, they're dressed based upon the influence of what someone told them to do, or what someone told them was cool, or this is the trend. And so that energy, that thought creation energy, is used to perpetuate and create a reality through our own creative force. And so
And
again,
our
I
and
see it.
our bowing to, like, oh yes, I need to wear a tie. Oh yes, I have to wear the white shirt. I see that I must submit to that so that I may have some degree of flexibility within the construct that I have agreed to.
Yeah. But to bring the example back to what you were saying, I see where there are things that are out here that are utilizing the creative power and energy, like you said, our desire for freedom, and weaponizing it against us. It's very clear.
There's also, there's so many things that can be said, but there's also this idea of whatever you do it from the point of view of the glory of it. So if you are, in Japan, there's a ritual of people becoming wealthy and rich. The president of Panasonic and many other people cleaning toilets. They clean the toilets for everyone in their factory, and they get richer and richer and richer and richer. And this idea of once you move towards doing something like that, where you're willing to be of service to your environment, to your company, to your idea, to the cleanliness of what you represent, then that morphic field produces wealth and abundance for you in many ways. First, through the people who work with you, who see you doing it. You know, there's this idea of there are other ways to break through the prison, and one of them is to be of service. Being in service to others for the glory of the service.
Yeah.
Not so that Joe comes in and the bathroom's clean for him. Good, Joe comes in and the bathroom's clean for him. But you're in service to keeping everything in your world in order and clean.
But what's wild about that is I'm seeing, even like at a mundane, practical level, of how that influences others to perpetuate it, or influence the simulation, or inspires. I mean, it can be looked at down here or up here, but it looks like the same principle.
There's so many ways to break free of it. It's just that we don't normally have the energy available to, you know, we see people rake the sand with precision and intent for perfection. That's the way. I have seen people in Senegal in front of a mosque cleaning the sand, like removing all the sand that's not the same color as the other sand, because they had nothing, no wealth to contribute. So they contributed their perfection and regard and reverence for the space. I had never seen that before. I was quite enlightened when I realized we always have something we can give. We always have a way in which we can grow. We can always break through the enslavement. If we have nothing, we can break through the enslavement. So I have seen that on the higher levels and on the more basic levels as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to see the different levels of interfacing. But I want to shift gears a little bit. You've kind of spoken about this, but we didn't identify it through terminology. How does the idea of a holographic reality, or life being a hologram, connect with the idea of simulation?
It's the truth of our reality is that in every bit of it is all of it, which is what a hologram is. And every gram of it is the whole of it. That's what the word means. And we can see that because we have forensic science, that they can look at the sweat on a hat and know whether it was a man or a woman, what age they were, and what their genetic disposition was. You know, this is something that has always been known. Those who are psychic can see certain things multidimensionally. Forensic science can see certain things clearly in every bit of every aspect of you, in your fingernails and your hair clippings, and every bit of you is your gender, and 75 trillion molecules in your body. Every one of them is signed what you are, whatever your design is. So that is a reoccurring truth of the entire galaxy. So we are the bits of aspects of creation that we are from Creator. We are clearly a hologram, a fractal, a reflection. And then the fractal is the aspect that carries the light. A fractal is that bit that carries the light. So that's also a hologram. The reflection is, in my light, I leave an imprint. So I'm always looking at my reflection. I'm always looking at the fractal. I'm always looking at the hologram. And I am that. But in the deciding to step into the amness of it, I amness of it, then we shatter the prison.
This is deep. I have a question of practical application. How can we take this knowledge of that we are living in a holographic simulated reality? We are one and the same with it. We're not separated from it. What are some ways we can move forward to step really into a sense of back into power regarding it? Because like you said, it's been used, the lack of this understanding has been used and weaponized against us to create undesirable realities. How can we flip this, like for the everyday person who may be listening, who commented simulation?
There are many ways, which I've mentioned several already, the idea of choosing to be free of the things that you're kissing the ring for. You know, are you kissing the ring so you can get you a 40 ounce? Are you kissing the ring so you can get high? Are you kissing the ring so you can sleep with somebody? Are you kissing the ring so you don't have to work? You kissing the ring because you want to work? You know, all of these things that have you in prison and enslaved because you feel like that is the thing, when you are the thing. Like you are the prize. And the you that's the prize you may not have fully developed it or cultivated the you that.
You got to be like Muhammad Ali. You got to be out here shining a little bit, recognize what you are.
The reality is that just like, I think that's such a good example, just like you might imagine him training every day, him running, him being in the wheel, taking a hit, and then going back. That's the reality of what it takes to break through this idea of the morphic field of our own thinking that is unwilling to do for self.
Yeah. When you say that, what comes to mind is seeing how we talk about energy hygiene, what we specialize in, and how the necessity of you want to be the light, you want to stay in your power, you got to keep clearing, right? And how there are circumstances where you might get knocked back, you know, like Muhammad Ali. But then you know, let me dust this off. I had that negative experience. Let me dust it off, get back in the game, build up my self-worth, my self-value, my power, self-control, all these wonderful things. And it's the perpetuation of it. I can see the repetition, the habituation, and then next thing you know, you're it. But I want to ask you a question because there's something in the language brought to mind. Is the goal freedom? Because you were talking about how we kind of lock ourselves into or sell ourselves for certain desired outcomes, and we lose ourselves in the process. So would the goal be freedom?
The idea is we are this aspect of sovereign beingness.
And just in truth and design.
As the stars in the night sky, as the sun in the sky, as the organic aspects of creation, not computer programmings, but the organic aspects that come from the mind of nature, or what we see in nature is the expression of what divine law is. So if a vine can grow around a building and defy gravity and grow up a tree to the top of it, so can we. You know, it's that idea of defying, breaking, being that piece of that blade of grass that breaks through the cement. That's the purpose of the third dimensional education or simulation or construct that we are in. But I think one thing that is often misunderstood or that people like to avoid is that we must have the vehicle we ride around in, the material that is in service to us, our bodies must be in accord with our thoughts. So if we're going to elevate, we have to elevate the experience of the body. And that is where most of the anti-life comes in, is in pulling on the body. Don't you want this? Don't you want that? And then the body becomes used to a certain thing and calls for it, but we are the ones who live inside the body. So I love the example that I often use of the man who stopped smoking and he carries a cigarette in his breast pocket. And every time he wants a cigarette, he pulls out the cigarette and he looks at it and says, no. And he puts it back in his pocket. That's a good example for us to gain mastery over the material. Once we gain mastery over the material, we gain mastery over the material.
See what you did there. So we're not separate from the material.
You're not separate.
We one with the material.
Yes,
the material
we
is
are.
one with us. All right, that's powerful. So let's go ahead and wrap it up with the call for the truth divination card pool.
What would be your question today?
I'm asking the call for the truth cards to share with us the truth that we must understand regarding simulation of our reality.
Well, something's stopping you.
More like, hey, this is the one, bro. The theme is truth. Throat chakra, number 5. The maxim is declare war on the enemy within you. Conquer your own mind. Let your battle cry be truth and victory. This is literally what you just concluded with, having self-control over the material. The material is informed by the mind. If we can take back power over this, we can take back power over this.
It's a simulation. I wrote that card. You read the card in the simulation, but now
it was already predetermined. It was already something for this moment. Gotcha. All right. Well, for those tuning in, please like, comment, subscribe. If there's topics that you're interested in, type them in the comment section. Clearly we have you all in mind, and thank you again for watching. Any final thoughts?
Thank you so much for joining us, and we give you the greetings of In Lakesh and Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude from the Divine Feminine, integrity, discipline, and action from the Divine Masculine. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.